Hi everyone, Jan here. Well, episode 3, my life story. In the early days, I was traveling with my mum and dad a lot of the time, thousands of miles through South Africa, Rhodesia, Lesotho, Malta, India, New Zealand, and Australia. And also Singapore and Malaysia. So we really went to a lot of places where my father performed, and my mother was treated like royalty, and I went along with her. It's a special time, and sometimes I was left at home with my grandparents, and that was a happy time as well, because I had 2 cousins who were older than me, but we played together, and I have great memories of games with my cousins, which I'll talk about as we go along. I also remember we travelled a lot with BOAC was the airline, and you'd walk up the stairs and there'd be an air hostess, and she'd be extremely glamorous, and she'd have a big basket full of boiled sweets waiting for you when you reached the top. Anyway, that's probably enough for this episode. I'm going to talk about the house at Hillcrest, which was a 2-story house on about 2 acres of land. And my memories of Hillcrest are very, very special to me. So I'm going to talk about those. It's a peaceful day here in Palm Cove, and I'm missing you dreadfully, and I'm sending you lots and lots of love. Bye for now. Hi everyone. Well, as I've already told you, I was born in London, and I grew up in a place called Shenzhen, which is in Surrey, and not very far from the centre of London, maybe 20 minutes. The house I lived in was called Hillcrest, and it was a 2-story white house with a circular drive and about 2 acres of land at the rear. The gardens were beautiful. So on the right-hand side of the house, on the 2nd story was my bedroom, and my bedroom looked out at 6 apple trees. And on occasion, I would climb out of the window and onto the apple trees and grab an apple and sit there. And I'd look down on my neighbours who had 2 boys, and they were pretty good looking. So even in those days, I was thinking, well, those boys might make good playmates, and yeah, they were very good-looking boys. And my grandfather, my mother's father, used to walk down the pathway to the rear on the right-hand side, where he planted all kinds of vegetables and also rhubarb. And he was terrific at growing vegetables. He'd had to do it during World War II when the local council gave small plots of land to people to grow vegetables during the war years, during wartime. So yes, and then my cousins would come and play on the lawn. We'd play all kinds of games, and I was very, very fond of them. And particular memory is Guy Fawkes Day. Guy Fawkes was, of course, a rebel of the British Parliament. He tried to blow up Parliament House, for which he paid a very big price. It's a pretty ugly story. His body was dismembered and hung on London Bridge. And Shakespeare, of course, was inspired by the story of Guy Fawkes. Anyway, on Guy Fawkes Day, there would be a bonfire and lots of fireworks and roasted chestnuts. So it's one of my special memories of childhood, those times growing up at Hillcrest. I'll share a little bit more of Hillcrest as we go along, but that's a very special memory for me growing up there. And one always has a tie to one's place of birth, wherever that is, for some peculiar reason. When I go back, I still like to stand in the mall and watch the Queen's Guards and the horse guards ride up the mall and the band's playing. It's just one of those things one has a natural tie to one's place of birth. Anyway, that's all for now. I miss China dreadfully. I miss you terribly. And please know that. And I cherish my 3 months in China. And you're all very close to my heart. Lots of love now.
Hello everyone. I hear you want to know something of my life. Well, let's see. I left school when I was 16. Now that was a fairly stupid decision, but I think I wanted to run my own life. And I initially went to work for an accountancy firm in Tottenham Court Road in London. And the head of the department, well, I think she called me a twit, which is someone with not too many brains, because I had difficulty learning the switchboard. Some of you won't even know what that is, because telecommunications have moved so rapidly. But yes, it was a machine, quite complex, with lots of plugs, and when a call came in, you had to put the plug in the right hole. And if you got that wrong, the call went through to the wrong person. Anyway, we ended up friends, and when I eventually left there to come back to Australia, I did receive a very nice reference from her. So that says something. You must have learned something. I liked people so much, and I think that got me through. I still like people a lot. Every morning I wake up with a smile and say hello to people. I think it makes your day. Anyway, chapter 2 coming. Well, yesterday I talked about leaving school early at 16, which was pretty dumb. And we'll get to why that's not such a wise decision. You see, knowledge is power. So the longer you stay at school and the longer you're learning, the greater the power. And education is a great shield against adversity. They're not my words. They're the words of Greek philosopher Aristotle. Anyway, I first started school at St Helens in London, down the road from the 2-story white house where I first grew up. And like Shakespeare's schoolboy in As You Like It, I would trunch down the road with my backpack on my back through the snow down to school with my tote bag, which had my ballet shoes. And very early in the piece, it was patent that art was the love or the passion of my life. So what do I remember about going to school at St Helens? Well, I remember that we had lunch together sitting along wooden tables, and part of the lunch was always a tin cup of hot milk, which I didn't like. And after lunch there would be physical exercises, and one of those exercises was jumping over the vaulting horse, something I always had trouble with, so I'd run towards it and stop. So I much preferred my ballet lessons or my singing lessons or my drama lessons. And then I'd trudge back the hill home. They were happy days at St. Helens. I also remember that we would search for acorns at the back of the school. So there were a string of acorn trees, and we'd go on the acorn hunt and imagine little fairies, different fairies jumping out of the acorns. Then, of course, in 1959, there was a decision taken to live permanently in Australia, and I went to school at St. John the Baptist School at Harbord, or Freshwater as it's now called. I'll share that experience with you in the next episode. Hi everyone, Jan here. Nice sunny day. I know we've had a bit of a chat about my early school life, trudging down the hill in the snow with a backpack on my back and drinking hot milk out of a tin mug at lunchtime. Let's talk a little bit about my lack of education whilst I was on the road with my parents. Education was a little bit disjointed. It consisted largely of stories, lots and lots of stories. So I came to love books, and I let my imagination fly away with the stories. It was a bit like jumping on a magic carpet and flying to different lands and experiencing different cultures. So much fun. There are so many lives in books, aren't there? Anyway, when we came to settle in Australia in 1959, well, things changed a lot. And for quite some time, I felt displaced. The people spoke differently, and there were lots and lots of insects, giant ones that I'd never seen in England. Anyway, I'll get to that story next time. I know we've had a bit of a chat about making the transition from the United Kingdom to Australia. Well, let me tell you, it was a real culture shock. Where do I start? Well, I went to St John the Baptist School in Harboard. Now, St John the Baptist School in Harboard is a Catholic school. Problem was, I was not a Catholic, and my parents didn't think to mention that fact because they just always saw people of all nations, of all religions as people. Wouldn't make any difference. Well, it did make a bit of a difference because in those days, if you were not a Catholic, you were what was called a public, and publics were doomed to go to hell. Not a good prospect.